Hello, Tequila.
Hi.
Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, so I think what you need to do is you just need to sit still for a second and breathe and rest. Don't you think? You've been running kind of hard. Yeah,
Yes,
you just need
I
to
have.
sit in a chair and chill. It's probably what you need to do.
On the beach.
On the beach?
On
Yeah,
the beach,
better yet.
yes.
But in all seriousness, you have been running pretty hard in the last couple of years, right?
Yeah, I don't think I've had a break since 2016.
Okay. All related to the Equity Alliance, or
yes.
why no break?
Well, so we founded the Equity Alliance in 2016, and that was my introduction to political organizing or electoral organizing. And once I started doing it, it was almost like I tell people it's like digging a hole. And the deeper you dig, the more you realize there's so much more to go, but the harder it is to crawl out.
Yeah.
And so in 2016, I think I started, at 100 miles an hour digging this hole.
Yep.
And now I'm probably at 75 miles an hour, but I'm down too far to try and slow down to 50.
Yeah. Andrew, can you turn our mics down a little bit? It's either that or the headphones. It just sounds a little bit hot, which is a good thing. Well, not too much. I don't know where the happy medium is there. Either we change the headphone volume or the mics are a little bit hot.
I'm loud and proud too.
That's great. I like that. Yeah, that's fantastic. I think I saw that your child is back in school. Is that correct?
Yes.
In person?
Yes.
Okay. You have how many kids you have?
I just have one daughter.
One. Okay.
Yep,
and she obviously is school age.
Yep. She's 6 years old.
Oh, cool. We have a 6-year-old daughter.
Really?
Yeah, Ava.
Yeah, I've met her before.
You met?
I think. No, or did I meet your son?
Oh, okay. The boys came to the gym.
Wait,
That's
how
where
many
we
kids
met.
do you have?
I have 5 kids.
Y'all have cable?
We do. Yeah, that wasn't the problem. We always wanted 5 kids.
Oh, okay. Well, that's awesome.
Well, to be exactly clear, I wanted 4 and she wanted 6, and we settled on 5 pretty early on in the marriage. So yeah, we have a 6-year-old daughter too. What's your daughter's name?
Christian.
Christian. Nice. And so back in school, Metro Nashville school somewhere?
Yes, she's in Metro Nashville.
Okay. Nice. Yeah, that's we had our first day back in person yesterday for Ava and Jackson. Jackson's our 8-year-old son. And they were so happy to go back, and they're loving it. So I hope that it sticks, you know what I mean? Because if cases break out, they're probably going to shut back down.
Yeah.
But so yeah, you got a daughter. We got Halloween coming up, right? Only like a couple of weeks out. It's coming pretty dang quick. You gonna go out and about?
So we're this 2020. I have not had a quarantine or any of that. I've been out organizing and trying to get people prepared for the up and coming election.
Okay.
And just really, working within the community with everything that's happened. Someone has to be that person that's kind of the glue to hold the 2 dots together. And those 2 dots are government and community. And so that's kind of where we operate, is as the glue to hold those 2 dots together. So this has been probably one of the busiest years for us, just because, we had a tornado back in March, and immediately after the tornado hit, we had COVID outbreak. And so that was another thing. And then everything that happened around the murder of George Floyd, and us being a Black power building organization, we were on the front lines of that, planning protests, all of that while being a single mom and, trying to find time to get my hair done, I guess.
Yeah. Andrew, we were watching a video, speaking of Halloween, we were watching a video of this guy who, because of the virus, I assume, it's caused him to be a little extra creative, because apparently, you're going to be a little bit more conscious of being socially distanced and so forth as you go about trick-or-treating and all this. Well, this is in Michigan somewhere, and he has a trolley system, and then he put a ghost on the front of this little bucket that has a place for adult beverages for the adults, and then a bucket with candy for the kids. And it's like what's the term on these? Like a zip line. It's like a zip line from his porch down to the sidewalk. And this little ghost zip lines down. Here it is. Let's watch that, Andrew. Can you turn the volume up on that? People might not be able to hear it. It's pretty great. Look at this. There goes the ghost. And you got candy kind of hanging out the bottom. And then the guy pulls the beer off the top and he like pulls it back up and he just runs that ghost down to the sidewalk. Look at the cup holders on that thing.
Wow.
So, that maybe we'll see some of that this year.
He's the MVP for Halloween already.
Absolutely. Thanks, Andrew. All right. The Equity Alliance. What are you guys doing and how did you get into that?
So the Equity Alliance, we're obviously a nonprofit organization that's focused on building power within Black communities. And our idea of power is organized people and organized money. So we believe in moving people to action through utilizing civic engagement as a weapon in the fight for social justice and economic equality. That's my elevator pitch.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah, and people can read it. It's at theequityalliance.com.
Theequityalliance.org.
Theequityalliance.org. Okay. Yeah, I've been over your website multiple times, and it's very well done. There is one thing that stood out to me just as I was reading a little bit again before you showed up here. You have, I think this is under the part about some of your core values or something, but you say having the self-determination to fully participate in our democracy is the key to our liberation. Just that idea of self-determination to like participate in the democracy. Is that sort of what you saw was maybe missing in the Black community, Black and brown community? Or was there something that caused you to, like, what was the thing that caused you to get into this?
Well, like most people who do this line of work, it was actually an experience. Most of the time, people go into advocacy or activism based off of some experience that they've had. And so it was a personal experience. My child's father, who, I was engaged to at one point, was arrested and was sentenced to 95 years, which he had a previous charge that he'd been released on parole for. And at the time, he was at a friend's house, or he like literally just walked into a friend's house, and the police came in through the back door. Again, it was a no-knock warrant, so it eventually got thrown out in court, and he was found not guilty on all charges. But because he had that parole sentence hanging over his head, he was actually, put back in prison, and his sentence was put back into place. And so during that time, my daughter was only 3 weeks old. So I don't have any family here in Nashville. I'm from Chattanooga. Most of my family's there. And I just felt like my whole life had been just crumbled. So I started trying to figure out how this even came to be. And, I, like most Black or brown people, probably 95% of the males in my family or in my life have had some sort of run-in with the criminal justice system. So I started really initially digging into the criminal justice system, and then I realized that it was bigger than just the cops, that there was a set of policies that centered around this larger issue that almost kind of made it okay to do the things that were being done and justified it. So I started really digging deep into that, and I realized it's not enough to just fight these symptoms of a larger system. We have to figure out how to dismantle the system. And so that started, me thinking about, well, how do we do that? Obviously, money, right? Things move when you have money. But then I started realizing how policies become and how people get into office and how those decisions are made. And so my friend at the time wanted to run for school board, Christian Bugs, and she's my best friend from college. And I was like, sure, I'm a project manager. I'm a certified project manager.
Okay.
And so I come from corporate America.
Yep.
And she was like, you're a project manager. You can, lead my campaign. And actually I could. It was very easy. It was way easier than working in corporate America. And so I led her campaign. It was a really contested race. She won with 56% of the vote, which was very, big because she was a political newcomer. And from there, myself and 5 of my other friends, we sat down and we said, we can't stop here. We have to make sure the information that we have and what we've learned, we share with other people in our community. And so the Equity Alliance was birthed out of that. And from there, we just hit the ground running, hosting events. I think the first year we hosted 40 events. We talked to 200,000 people the first year, and it was really just organizing. And so I learned then that, in the organizing space, there is this, I would almost say elitist notion that you have to be well trained and you had to work for Obama and you had to have all of these credentials to do it. But as a Black woman, and as someone who was born in inner city, pretty much, I hate this term, but pulled myself up by my bootstraps, so to speak. First generation college student. Any type of social ill you can think of, I've overcome it. I realized that I've always been an organizer because that's how I had to survive. Community was how I survived. That's how I, made it through most of the social ills that I made it through was through community and support. And so organizing came very natural, but I took the first 2 years, like going all over the country, training. I dove headfirst into finding a mentor, learning about all the different software systems, how to do all these things. So I literally trained myself, self-taught myself how to be an organizer. And it wasn't easy because there are obviously policies, multi-layered. And from there, even now, if you would have asked me 4 years ago, would we be where we are now? I would tell you, no, this is just something we're doing because we see a need. I didn't start this to, be like a figurehead or that kind of still weirds me out a little bit, that people know who I am. But I didn't do that to be perceived as a community leader or anything like that. I literally did it because there was a need. And it just blew up. We started with, it was 5 of us, and we were like, okay, these are all the things we need. We need a website, we need a logo. And my co-founder is, she's actually a communications professional. So she does our website. She does our comm stuff. I do most of the programming, and, we split fundraising. So it was kind of ordained, I would say, how it all came together. Nobody else could have put us together like that because we just have the perfect fit. But we started with $250 each, and at that time, again, I was a single mom. Imagine what I was dealing with. I just graduated with my master's, and I was in between jobs. And so I didn't even have the $250. One of the co-founders was like, I'll put this on my credit card for you, and you just pay me back $50 a month.
Yeah, wow.
And we did that. And up until April of this year, we were 100% volunteer led. And a lot of people don't know that because they see the wins we've had and they think we have a massive staff. But we had people who were, accountants and professionals, lawyers, seasoned organizers and politicos who volunteered 20, 30 hours a week to the mission that we had. So we were able to come on full time this year, myself and my co-founder. So literally in the height of COVID in April, we went from only having a staff of 1 because in September of 2019, my co-founder rolled on full time. And then in April of 2020, we hired 8 more people. So it's been a very busy year.
Full-time? Full-time staff?
Full-time staff.
Wow. Yeah, very great. So I'm sure you guys are learning as you go too, with hiring so quickly and keeping the organization on track and on point and on message and on mission and teaching the values and not letting it run out of control as you hire so many people so quickly, because that can be difficult too.
Oh yeah, we had a project that we just wrapped up called the Our Fair Share Initiative, where we partnered with the mayor's office and the city council to do a citywide community needs assessment around just some of the issues that were more prevalent in the higher COVID areas, which just so happened to be the Black and brown areas. And during that time, we had close to 100 people on payroll.
Whoa. Okay, so that was a short spike?
It was like a 60-day project.
Oh, I see.
Yeah. The good thing is working in corporate America teaches you how to do a lot of those things.
Sure.
You know, I led massive teams and even though I didn't make that much money, I led multi-million-dollar grant projects. And so it wasn't hard. I'll say this, the hard part was accepting the fact that I get to do it my way. Now
you get to do it your way.
Now I get to build a team that is unapologetically Black, that is centered in the Black experience, that focuses on how we incorporate the Black culture in the work that we do. And that's most of the times that's difficult for people to wrap their heads around, funders, whomever. But I get to have the self-determination, back to that word, to make that decision to build out an organization where, we are encouraging people to go to therapy once a month, at least. We're doing team building activities. We're having family days where we're saying on Fridays, take half a day for your family. You know what I mean? Like those sorts of things that make people want to come to work.
Yes.
That make people that gets people invested in the work.
Yep.
We're actually able to do that without thinking about the bottom line.
You touched on Black culture. What would be some things that are part of Black culture that maybe Andrew and I, as average white guys, wouldn't know?
Well, Black culture is world culture, so you guys would know it. It's in everything. But oftentimes, as Black people, we're told in order to be successful, the culture has to be last. And so something simple like me wearing hooped earrings, I would have never worn those in corporate America because that's considered...
Really?
Yeah. These
you wouldn't have worn those earrings at your prior job?
No.
Why?
Because that is, as a Black woman, when you look a certain way, you are automatically perceived as a certain way. So hooped earrings, long hair weave. I mean, one of the things that even when I was, I've done several, and I'm pretty sure you guys have too, of those like in college trainings that prepare you for the work world. And one of the first things they tell you is, you should keep your hair off of your face. You shouldn't wear earrings larger than a dime. If you are a woman, and if you're like me, I'm pretty curvy, you shouldn't wear things to accentuate your curves. And so even those small things that I think sometimes men, and then you add white on there, that's another one, take for granted because you never really have to worry about it.
Sure.
Heels, your heels shouldn't be higher than 3 inches. I can wear 6-inch stilettos and booty shorts if I want to.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, what are they going to say?
Right.
And so that's one thing. But the other thing is the way we do outreach in comparison to the typical electoral organization or entity is a lot different. We believe in meeting people where they are. So we go to Black churches. We do what we call, our slogan is voting is lit. And the reason why we do that is because we don't have your typical candidate debate. We have cocktails with candidates. And so like last year, you would have seen we had former Mayor Browley and Mayor John Cooper, and both of them were sipping on a bourbon.
Okay.
And we were discussing the issues. And I personally think it got them a little opened up.
Of course it will. There's something about when you have alcohol as part of the conversation. I think there's something, I don't know if it's spiritual or intangible or whatever it is, but it does change the dynamic a little bit. And that's where you can actually like see what this guy or gal is thinking, what their thought processes are, what their plans are, like those types of things. The whole scripted thing, that is less than ideal most of the time.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, we do a party at the polls. So on the 17th, which is this coming Saturday, we're having a tailgate actually at the polls where all of the Black Greek letter organizations are going to come out and vote together. We're going to have music. We're going to have, a DJ, food, all of those things. And it's unapologetically Black. Like we're going to play Black music.
Yep.
At this point, I'm too tired to code switch. We're going to do what we know excites our people. And we've had pushback before, not just from white people, but from Black people who say like, y'all shouldn't be doing this or y'all shouldn't be doing it that way. They want everything to be like a stuffy forum or a panel. And that's not what gets people excited. Yep. People aren't excited by someone coming and explaining to them what voting is. They're excited when they feel like what they're already excited about is incorporated in the process. So that's what we do.
Okay, so that makes a lot of sense. And what you're saying with incorporating some of this fun and having, these mayors with sipping on some cocktails while you guys are having a conversation, that type of thing, having music at the voting booths. Is that a Black culture thing, or is that just we are, whoever you are, no matter what skin color you are, we are just free to be ourselves and enjoy life? You know what I mean? Because what you're saying resonates with me, and I'm not Black. Like, that sounds fantastic. That would be how I'd want to go to the polls. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So is that a human thing, or is that a Black thing?
It's a human thing. But for us, because we do like focus on Black and brown communities, we center like Black people in the Black culture. And so, like I said, and this might be an unpopular opinion, but Black culture influences world culture. But oftentimes Black people are like, we're told that our culture shouldn't exist in certain spaces, and professional and political spaces are one of them. Now, it's cool to have, downtown music festival where you're listening to these pop and rock artists who remade soulful or blues black music, and it's completely fine. But if we were to do that with a crowd of black people, it would become a nuisance. And
I
so
see. Yes.
one of the things that we want to do is, like, yes, we're not saying that only black people can come to our events. We're just saying that we're going to acknowledge that a lot of the cultural norms, specifically food, music, and all of those things, are rooted in the black experience. And we
Yes.
get to claim that unapologetically. And by the way, white people, you can come and enjoy it too.
Sure. Yes. Yeah, that makes total
It makes
sense.
sense.
Well, we'd love to, right, Andrew? We can't speak for anyone other than ourselves, but that all sounds fantastic.
Oh, it's lit. It's lit. It's a turned up experience.
Yeah, that sounds great. Yeah, most people are way too stuffy, way too caught up in thinking about what other people think, way too caught up in the norms. Just you need to chill and enjoy your work and enjoy your life for sure. The college class. So Andrew went to college. I did not. But I've never heard of a college class where they teach you about ways to dress in, like, after you're trying to get a job and so forth. So there's a class. What was the class? Or was this like a part of?
Yeah, it wasn't necessarily
prep.
like a class that was specifically dedicated to that. It was more
Sure.
so of like, preparation classes or
I
classes
see.
where maybe intro to such and such, intro to business or intro to nursing or whatever
Okay.
your field is. They're teaching you about the social norms of
Okay.
what it means to be in that field.
Yes.
And so like my team building activities are, we're going to the club.
Yeah.
Because that's what we like to do, right? I mean, I'm 34. Majority of my team is under 40. During that age, we like to go to bars. We like karaoke. We do those things. In corporate America, I had to go learn how to play golf.
Yeah. Did you? Golf is awful.
I mean, it serves its purpose. It's kind of boring and long, but
Yeah. It's very boring. Those are that type of team building activity sounds great. I've got a few things here I don't want to forget to ask you. First of all, where do you like to go in Nashville? To bars or clubs?
So I like to go to Minerva Lounge, which is one of my classmates. He owns that.
Okay.
I go to the Weekend.
Okay.
I'm really like unapologetically black, so I stick to the black owned stuff.
Okay.
But sometimes I'll go to different things. Like I used to go to Basement East sometimes when they would have like hip hop sets. I like those.
Yeah.
I like going to reggae clubs.
Okay.
And there's this little lounge around the corner, Flamingo Lounge.
Yeah, it's right
I
down
like
the
that
road.
place.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I've been there a few times.
And I like PH craft cocktails too.
Is that? It's right up here in Wedgwood, Houston, isn't it? Okay, I've not been there yet. Back to the class. The reason I was sort of interested in that is, I guess I always thought the way that a lot of people dress in corporate America was sort of self-perpetuated, in that like everyone does it, and so the newcomers realize everyone else is doing it. That's how I'm going to dress too. We recently had Shelby Stevens, who was a reporter for WSMV. Channel 4 Nashville, and she just moved to Hawaii like a week ago. And so she's obviously not a reporter here anymore. But she was, I asked her why reporters talk the way they do, because reporters tend to be like, they're just doing their thing and then back to you, Bob. Like they all have this kind of very matter of fact, sort of a deeper voice, sort of like the end of their sentences really tailed down, and I just figured that was like a training that she went through at some point, and it wasn't. There's no training for like talking like that as a reporter. I just figured that like the news apparatus had figured out that if you talk a certain way in a certain tone of voice and end your sentences, sort of very matter-of-factly, that tends to like be received better by the audience, and then they're teaching it and everything. And no, it's not like that at all. No one's ever taught her to teach like that. Matter of fact, now they're saying try as much as possible to speak naturally and not have like a reporter voice. And that was just something where she wanted to be a reporter from a young age, so all the reporters that she paid attention to, they all spoke that way. And as she went through college and got her job, like that's what she did. It was like self-perpetuated. It wasn't necessarily taught. The coming back to, all right, the Equity Alliance. All right, you gave us the elevator pitch, but like what is you guys are doing a lot of different things. I know you're not just in Nashville now. You're kind of Tennessee statewide.
Yeah,
but
we're
it's
statewide.
focused on Tennessee, right? It's Tennessee specific.
Yeah, so right now we're Tennessee specific, but eventually we would like to grow to regional to be a southern based organization, but right now we're specifically focused on Tennessee. There's a lot of ground to cover here.
Yeah, it is. I mean, you guys are ambitious. So, all right. So you kind of gave us the elevator pitch, but you're doing a bunch of different things. But like, what do you think is like one of the more important things that you guys are doing, as that really is like moving the needle? Is it getting people out to vote? Is it that, or is there other things?
People ask me that all the time, and I always say, like, voting is one tool in our toolbox. Like, do I think that voting is going to be the end all be all that's going to save or liberate the Black and brown community? Absolutely not. I think that voting, money, power, access, influence, all those things that, most, and I just say this typically, white men use to kind of bend the spectrum to make it fit what they want are all tools that we can use for liberation.
Yeah.
But the biggest and the most important thing that we do is actually the simplest thing, and that's, organizing people.
Yep.
Because the more people we organize, the more people we communicate with, the more people we can heal, the more people we can begin to have relationships with and be in community with, so that when we do need to do some sort of action, we have a community of people who, one, trust us and trust our leadership, but two, are trained, are knowledgeable, and are ready for whatever that action may look like. And so, yes, we do focus a lot on civic engagement because that's one of the most underutilized tools. A lot of times Tennessee in 2016 was 50th in voter turnout. And like I said, I always tell people this, in the spaces of community resiliency or healing or, overcoming social ills, we treat it like we would treat the common cold. You will hear people talk about criminal justice reform is a big one right now. Everybody's talking about criminal justice reform. You'll hear about housing issues. You'll hear about, violence. You'll hear about issues with education. But what people don't realize is that's just like treating the common cold. You're taking something for a sore throat. You're taking something to suppress your cough. But nobody ever stops to think, if the cold is so common, why do we not have an immunity? Why have we not figured out a vaccination for it? And so we are trying to figure out the vaccination. We're trying to help people develop an immunity for the cold versus treating the symptoms.
Yes. And okay, so what would you say are some of the underlying issues with those things, like crime and criminal justice reform, those things? It sounds like you're saying there's something underlying that. Okay, what is that?
Systemic racism, obviously, white supremacy, systemic racism, anti-Blackness are at the core of a lot of those issues. And they are, those issues, and that systemic racism is the thread that has weaved together democracy, if that makes sense. And so for us, how do we begin to, one, figure out how that thread is actually weaved in and then reweave it? Yeah.
That's a very tricky question because, I mean, one of the good things is in this last year, spring, summer, I mean, a lot of these issues have surfaced in a way that they haven't before or in some time. So it's getting people thinking about, I'm just thinking, I can think of multiple friends, church, that are thinking about these things, that are talking about these things, that in a way that is elevated from, say, last year this time or the year before that. I know that's not the case in all circles, but so like the issues are kind of rising to the surface, but then there's a lot of disagreement, or there's some disagreement about like where the actual issues are. And maybe it's not even disagreement. Maybe it's areas of focus, because some people tend to be more focused on police brutality and others are more focused on criminal justice reform. Others are more focused on like economic opportunities in communities, which is really, and that's it, which is obviously a super critical one. As you're kind of surveying the landscape today, like where do you see like one of the more important things? We could even take Nashville if we want to like hone in on it. Is there police that is, would you say would be one of the bigger issues, or is it our laws and the way they're enforced, or or is it blatant racism? However that kind of plays itself out, even on a systemic level. Like, if you were kind of, surveying Nashville, where do you see it here?
Economic opportunities. That's an easy answer for me. I definitely think that the fact that Nashville is, ranked one of the largest, smallest towns, and you have teachers and people that make the city what it is that can't afford to live here it's crazy. So, I do think that one of the things that COVID revealed to me was that, Black people have always faced a pandemic, and that pandemic is poverty. Yes, poverty and systemic racism and anti-Blackness all go hand in hand, but at the core of what we're experiencing right now is a lack of economic opportunity. People, when you don't have opportunities, when people cannot afford to feed their families, they're going to go out and do what they feel they can do or what they have access to be able to survive. And over time, those survival tactics become a way of life. And I think that is what we're seeing. It's hard to just pick one issue because, like I said, systemic racism and economic opportunities go hand in hand. Even with the Our Fair Share initiative that we launched with the mayor's office, one of the things that we realized is access to government resources and information is something that our communities just don't have. And so when you think about all of the millionaires that are in this city, I'm pretty sure if you pulled their taxes, 98% of them have some sort of government contract. How many of those contracts are going to Black and brown people? How many Black and brown developers are there that are taking advantage of this boom in Nashville? And if there are Black and brown developers, how many of them have the political capital to not be shut out? And so it all kind of goes hand in hand. So I think what society has taught us to do when we think about politics, when we think about everything, is segmented out. Like, nobody wants to sit and eat a whole meal. They want to chew on a little bit here and there. But the reality is it's a family feast. You might eat the chicken and I might eat the green beans. You know what I mean? But together, you can focus on whether it's police brutality, and that's your thing, and I'm focused on criminal justice, and he's focused on civic engagement. If we're all focused on something different, how we do it doesn't and shouldn't matter. It's the why that matters. Do we have the same mission? And so that's kind of where the alliance piece from Equity Alliance comes in, because we realize no one person can do everything. We have to be like an army of ants.
Yes.
And in order to do that, we have to be in alignment. We have to be in alignment around what the mission is. And the mission is simple liberation. And all of these tools, from protesting to advocacy to direct service to the things that you mentioned, all of these tools are going to help us to begin to dismantle the system and reconfigure it in a way that liberates us.
Yes. Voting. Why do you think that we have to jump in our car, drive somewhere, stand in line, click a ballot, punch a hole in it, fill it out, whatever, drive home? I mean, we bank online. People buy jets online. I mean, do you think that we should be able to vote online?
Yeah.
And why do you think that's not already happened? Is it because it's government run and government tends to not you may disagree with me on this, but you look at a company like Amazon or Google, I mean, they just take strides, and I mean, they are tech companies, I understand that, but they take something that's a pain in the butt, like getting a taxi, and next thing you know, you can just do it on an app, and government tends to be a little more clunky and a little farther behind in those types of things. They don't have sort of the monetary incentive that the privately owned or publicly traded startup has. Is that why we can't vote online, or why? It shouldn't be that hard, right?
It shouldn't be, but voter suppression. I mean, if we made it easy, everybody would do it. And the more people that do it, the less politicians have power to empower the Amazons and the financial capitalist monopolies. So it's all a part of the bigger system. Like, if they said all of us could go out and vote, if they made it easy for everybody to vote and access to voting was equitable, a lot of the things that we see happening right now wouldn't be happening. I mean, even let's just say we didn't change politicians. I think one of the things that people don't realize is they're like, oh, the electoral college, and no matter who you put in office, they're going to be crooked. And I'm like, no, they're crooked because they have nobody to answer to.
Right.
They were elected with less than 10% of the voting population. So who's going to check them? But if you have 80, 90% of the voting population go out and vote, and they know that, and their political strategists are telling them, look, all these areas came out to the polls, and Amazon's coming to them and saying, look, I need you to deliver on this. And if you don't deliver on this, I can't fund this, this, and this for you. And the people are saying something, and they're saying, well, we're going to vote you out. You put pressure on them. Right now, politicians, when voter turnout is low, when voter registration is low, there's no pressure for politicians to perform. They have nobody to answer to.
Yeah.
Besides Amazon.
Yeah.
I bet you they never miss. I bet you Jeff Bezos never misses an election.
Yeah.
Or he never misses a financial disclosure of an election that he cares about.
Yeah. Yeah. You're probably right about that. What is the percentage of the population in Tennessee that actually vote? Do you know offhand? Like as far as what the voter turnout is?
We'll see like 45. We were ranked 45th in voter turnout based off the 2018 election. Right now, we have less than 40% of the population that comes out and vote. When you look at the Black population, when you look at the brown population, it's even less. So typically, voting is the rules, the laws that are being made, as bad as I hate to admit this, actually reflect the people that are voting. Older white men are voting. And so the laws are created to benefit older white men. And what happens is, like in 1965, after the Montgomery bus boycott, where they were organizing money, right, and people, and you saw the Voting Rights Act of 1965 come out, Black people were voting in high numbers. That was right around the time when home ownership was starting to go up and things like that. And then boom, the movement got killed, because obviously white supremacy, and less and less people stopped voting for several reasons. Voter suppression was one of them. What we failed to do in 2013, Shelby versus Holder gutted a pivotal piece of the Voting Rights Act, which made it basically legal for states, typically states that were southern states, to come in and change voting laws. Prior to that, they had to go through the federal government, Congress and Senate, to be able to change voting laws. Once that happened, a lot of states, southern states, started implementing different rules that made it more difficult to vote. ID laws, changing the polling times and polling locations. They started implementing felony voter rights restoration laws that prevented felons from voting. Tennessee is ranked the third from the bottom hardest state to vote in.
Third from the bottom?
Yeah, and you guys are business owners. Did you know that Tennessee has the most expensive amount that it costs to start an LLC in the country?
Yeah. No, I didn't know that.
Most places it's only like $80. It's like total $350 here.
Yeah, it's okay. I didn't know that. And so when I was in New York State, I'd always have the attorneys create the LLC, and it was usually like $2,000 or something with attorney's fees and everything. I feel like I didn't know in other states it was. I thought Tennessee was cheap at $350.
Nope.
Tennessee. I will say in Tennessee it's at least pretty easy to do yourself. Way easier than in New York State.
I'm pretty sure Tennessee has some of the strictest voting laws in the country.
Interesting.
We're the one state that requires felons who've served their time and gotten out to pay fines, fees, and child support. And on top of that, in Tennessee, if you let's say you go to prison for a felony and you're on child support, your child support continues to accrue while you're in prison. We're one of the only states that does that. I think it's like only 2 other states. Wow.
So now, as a woman, do you think, I mean, in some ways that I guess is, if it's a male that's a felon, it's bad for him, but in some ways it's good for the mom, right? If that's accruing. So as a woman, do you still think that's a good thing or a bad thing?
I think it's a bad thing. As a single, not just a woman, but a single mom, I think it's a bad thing, particularly because what ends up happening is the state gets to assess their fees, and who do you think gonna get their money first?
Right. Of course.
They're going to take their money first. And so while it may seem like, okay, and then if you think about it, if someone goes to prison for a felony and they're that behind on their child support, how much do you think they're going to be able to pay you?
Exactly.
You know what I mean? You come out better, because that's the other thing. If you're over so much on child support, not only do your voting rights get taken, they can take your driver's license, that can prevent you from getting a passport, that can prevent you from doing several things that could be a ticket to a job, right?
That's right.
So, I mean, it is not like P. Diddy's behind on child support. Like,
yeah, that's right. When it comes to like the different areas of how people are affected based on their race in this country, one of the areas that this book, have you read The New Jim Crow?
Mm-hmm.
Heard of it at least?
Mm-hmm.
They kind of dig into, well, I mean, a lot of different things, but they're looking at the laws and certainly, our criminal justice system a little bit. But when you look at some of the laws that were made in the 80s, 70s and 80s around particularly drug laws, you had powder cocaine that was more popular with white people. You had crack cocaine that was more popular with black people. And the laws for crack cocaine violation was 50. This sounds surely it wasn't 50. I want to say 50. It was an exorbitant amount, like so much worse if you got caught with crack cocaine than powder cocaine. Crack cocaine is not necessarily worse for you than powder cocaine. Mm-hmm. It was just based on, this is at least the argument in the book, it was based on certain types of cocaine was more popular in certain types of circles, and laws sort of took that into consideration in order to, I guess, imprison a larger percentage of a certain type of population, black and brown people. And then, one of the interesting things that talk about in that book is, all right, so, well, there's so much to dig into there. But then even you look at like where certain communities that these drug laws are being enforced in, and then certain communities where they're not being enforced in. And you can look at marijuana, you can look at cocaine, you can look at other types of drugs, that there is not necessarily a higher amount of use in the black and brown community. It's just that's where the police is focusing their attention more. And then you put people into prison or parole, and now you have a check on your record, which hurts when you're trying to get a job. It hurts when you're trying to get housing, which means you don't have as much opportunity, which means you don't have as much maybe hope for the future, which means you might get into trouble quicker again. I mean, it's just this cycle that just sort of perpetuates, which I think that book was written in 2010. I mean, there's certainly been some improvements there. I think it was, I want to say it was Obama that kind of got rid of the greater penalty, or at least to some degree, greater penalties for crack cocaine versus powder cocaine. So, I mean, there's been some improvement there. But that level of what the laws are and where they are enforced is an interesting discussion that I think if we look at something like police brutality, obviously there's bad cops. And I'm curious what your thoughts are on that. But when you look at that, but then there's also a degree where sometimes cops might be getting, say, the blame that is maybe also due at the people that are making these laws and creating the policy. I mean, there's lots of blame that needs to be placed there too, which I don't feel like that level gets very much attention. It's usually more kind of boots on the ground. So what are your thoughts with what the things that were going on this summer with police brutality, defunding the cops? Do you think defunding the police is a good idea? What are your thoughts there?
So I think the narrative around what defunding the police actually means is spewed. And I think in this information age, while people are like, we shouldn't care about that, we should. Because if we're going to organize people in money, we need a message that resonates with people, a message that, people feel like they can get behind. And the word defund the police has a very extremist narrative to it that most people like to fit in the middle because it's comfortable. And so while personally, I feel like, yes, it is a good idea. We should rethink how we look at crime. We should rethink how we view punishment, hiring police officers, which a huge percentage of our police officers come from outside of Nashville. So we're essentially hiring people from other counties to come into our counties and hurt our people and go back and spend their money in their counties. So do I think that we should, I think the way I would say it is re-envision policing.
Mm-hmm.
Take those funds and invest in programs that can begin to restore communities versus punish them.
Mm-hmm.
Because a lot of the things that people are being punished for are survival tactics. They're things that if you put someone in a housing project with a bunch of other people that only make $5,000-$6,000 a year and you dump drugs in that area, what do you expect is going to happen?
Yeah.
The other thing that is kind of odd about that is the people who I see who are so like up in arms about the defund the police narrative are people who live in neighborhoods that probably never have a police ride down their street.
Yeah.
And so my thing is, if you feel like having police riding around a block or around a street makes you safe, then just have them come park at your house.
Mm-hmm.
You don't have to go or live in the areas where police are always at and they're targeting people. And so I do appreciate the fact that you highlighted that I'm not going to say it's not the police, because there are some racist cops, and
For sure.
singling out the good police takes the focus off of the fact that police are actually intentionally killing people, black people, unarmed black people. But I am going to say that I think that what we need to think about is, who are the police? You have white boys from Bumblefuck, Tennessee that have never been around black people, that have only seen black. Can I curse?
I'm not going to stop you.
Okay. That have only seen. Sorry.
You do you.
That have only
but
seen.
we're talking about like being yourself and everything.
Yeah.
You can be yourself here.
Okay. They've only seen black people in movies. They've only heard about black, but they have no experience with black people. And you go and put them into one of the, quote, roughest black neighborhoods, and you expect for them to be calm. You expect for them to know how to communicate with people. No, the first time they see a 6'5" black man that weighs 300 pounds, they're threatened.
Mm-hmm.
And when you feel threatened and you're carrying a weapon, what's the first thing you're going to do? You're going to pull your gun.
Yep.
It's the same thing as if you dump me in the middle of a Trump rally and put a pistol on my waist. I'm going to have my hand on my gun, because I'm going to feel like my life is in jeopardy, because my experiences with white supremacists has not been one that showcases them in a light where I feel like my life isn't going to be in jeopardy.
Yeah.
So I think it's deeper than just that. And then, like you said, you think about with Breonna Taylor, no-knock warrants. You think about probable cause to be able to pull people over and ask questions later. All of these things are policies. And if these policies did not exist, then we wouldn't have police that feel empowered to do the things that they're doing. And so, yes, do I think we need to defund the police? Absolutely. We need to re-envision what it looks like, what punishment looks like, but we don't need to let that be the end-all be-all. We need to also make sure that these policing policies are changed. Because if we just change the punishment and don't change the policy, what ends up happening, it gets privatized like everything else in the country.
Yeah. Well, that's the other unfortunate thing to this discussion too, is you have prison owners that are obviously incentivized to have full prisons, and they're tied in with these policymakers. And sometimes the policymakers are on the boards of these. I mean, it's just, it's insane that would even be like allowed to happen, but it does. And so there's clearly an incentive here to be putting people through the prison system, a financial incentive. And apparently it's a big industry, you know, all of the guards that need to be hired and the food that needs to be made and the healthcare that goes associated and building the prisons and the real estate. I mean, it's like a massive apparatus in this country. So there is an incentive to be funneling people through the prison system. And and this comes back to everyone's breaking the law. Like to some degree you're going to go over the speed limit. You're going to stop a little bit too late at the stop sign. You're going to stop a little bit too early at the stop sign. You're going to put your turn signal on too late. You should have put it on earlier. You're going to forget to put your turn signal on. You might have a tail light that's out, or, I mean, you can just go down the list. Like everyone's breaking the law. So it really comes down to the people that are enforcing the law. And this is a point in a book that I'm reading now called Cruel and Unusual Punishment by Alex Kirkatanis. And he talks about the complicity of lawyers in the criminal justice system. And this is the point that he makes out or makes in the book really, really well, which is the fact that there's these people, cops and so forth, that are having to make these decisions about which people they're going to get in trouble for breaking the law and which ones they aren't, because we're all basically breaking the law. And you can come back to marijuana, for example. for whatever reason, you have, it kind of being culturally cute on the college campus to be doing weed. And, but in a certain community, it's like they're coming in, they're knocking down your door, and they're like doing these no-knock warrant stuffs in certain states. It's absurd. But I wanted to ask you about, defunding the police. This idea that, because yes, defunding the police does not necessarily mean you remove all the funding from the police. Although I think some may be advocating for that in certain areas. I'm not entirely sure. But I've seen a couple of times, at least, the idea of, and this would technically require more funding for the police, which would be fine too if it's for the right uses, the idea of sending social workers along with police, like riding along. And the reason I think that's a fascinating idea, and I don't know, I'm not a police officer, I've never, I just don't know, I'm ignorant when it comes to that. So I don't know if this type of thing would work well or not. But I do have a friend that, an older friend who has personal experience where his wife was like physically abusing, like he has a scar on his nose and a broken toe, and he has called the cops on her. Usually I feel like it's a little bit the other way around, but he's called the cops on his now ex-wife multiple times. And that relationship is over, thankfully. She was quite a bit younger than he. But twice he called the cops. The cop shows up, and next thing he's in trouble, and he's a Vietnam vet. Like this guy, he deals with PTSD. Like he's not, and he's the one that's being attacked. Cops come in and they're just doing their thing and they're listening to her side of the story. Next thing, like he's in trouble, and he's the one who called the cops. So my point is, having some social workers in the mix, I think would be an interesting idea. I think it could be a good thing.
Mm-hmm, I agree. So we do that now with the Department of Domestic Violence. At one point, Tennessee was ranked extremely high for cases of domestic violence. And I believe, if I'm not mistaken, domestic violence is still like the number one reason why people are arrested here. It's domestic charges. And there was actually a counseling section or sector they were trained counselors. Most of them were master's level psychologists. And they were actually going out with cops on runs when there were domestic cases or incidents. And so I think that, there are so many different ways that we can put a Band-Aid on a larger problem. Mm-hmm. But at the core of it is systemic racism. I don't care how you slice it, flip it over, put cheese on it. It doesn't matter if you send 2 social workers out there, because guess what? The social workers are going to be white women. And guess what? They're going to be biased. I have a master's in therapy, and I can tell you that malfeasance and implicit bias exists in therapy just as prevalent as it does in policing. Mm-hmm. And so until we take a step back and address the fact that a lot of the policies that govern the laws that are being enforced are steeped in systemic racism and anti-Blackness, we're going to see this cycle continue to reinvent itself in other ways. Mm-hmm. Policing is not the only way Black people are being killed. I mean, Black women are dying at alarming numbers during childbirth. Black children are, being punished and suspended in the school at alarming numbers. And so what happens is the media gaslights one issue, and we feel like this is the issue. And we keep going from issue to issue to issue to issue. And like I said with the common cold, we never figure out that we need a vaccination.
Mm-hmm. So at the root of it, you're seeing that still in this country, or especially in this country, in 2020, Black people are not always, but often enough to be called systemically, just treated differently in a negative way than a white person.
Always, not sometimes, always. And sometimes it's not intentional. I'll be very transparent. I dated a white guy for like 2 days, right? Mm-hmm. He was a nice guy, but I realized that he would want to have these conversations with me because of the work that I do. And I just would be real with him, like, no, you're a white man. So if you put your name on a piece of paper, you're more than likely to get a call back than I am. That is systemic racism. Your children are more likely to be accepted to college than mine. You know, you are more likely to get a better rate on a home than me. You're more likely to get a better rate on a credit card than me. If you go to the doctor, they're more than likely to listen to you than they are to me. And that is because of solely the color of my skin. I can't pretend to be white even if I wanted to, not on the phone, not in person, not on paper. Like I can't, there's nothing I can do. I'm a Black woman, and no matter how you run into me, you're going to know that. And I was trying to get him to understand, like, you have a privilege that, you know, I don't have. And he's like, well, I went through some hard stuff in life. Well, you know what? You had a 400-year head start.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you had 400 years to be ahead of where Black people are in this country. And now all we're saying is we want what's owed to us, but we just want to be treated with equity. Because we're like, everybody's saying, oh, well, let's treat everybody equal. No. You have a 400-year head start. You're all the way up here. We need equity. Equity. We need you to understand that, you know, there are some things that have been in place that have caused our people to really be set back.
Yeah, that is extremely unfortunate. Yeah, it is, but it's okay. I mean, if it's happening, and it's good to talk about it. Like it, and it's not okay. I mean, if people are being treated differently anywhere at any time based on the color of their skin or their wealth or like those types of things, I mean, that is not. I mean, I believe in a creator God, you know, like that people have dignity, no matter the color, no matter what you do for a job, you know, people have equal dignity. And it's not the experience for people in this country. Let me ask you this. Is it particularly bad in this country, or is it bad in other countries? Do you have experience? Because this has been something I've been curious about is with other countries. I'm thinking of like the UK and some of those other countries. Is it better in other places in the world than it is here?
So I'll say this. This is the crazy thing. I've traveled all over the country doing this kind of work, training people. I'm actually going to Africa, Lord willing. Hopefully I don't get COVID or anything. But I'm actually scheduled to go to Africa in November.
Oh, cool.
To train some organizers on how to do organizing work around racial justice. And this is in Africa, where they are the majority. But I'll say this, as a Black American, you get treated a lot better in other countries. I will say that, like that American passport in another country as a Black person.
Okay.
Especially in like Asia and stuff, they think you Beyonce. You know what I mean? They don't see Black people. So they think all Black people that come to other countries you're rich, you're famous, you're somebody famous, right? Because who else Black is, which is within itself systemically inequitable, because in their mind, they see all Black people as less than. And so when they do see a Black person in Dubai or places I've gone, Asia, or, you know, places like that, they think immediately like, who are you? You're somebody. Yeah. But there's racism all around the country. And it is this notion of anti-Blackness. Even if you go and look at the Hispanic and Latinx communities, Afro-Latinas, there's a whole movement around the Afro-Latinas who in Cuba and in Brazil and in all these other countries are being treated as less than because they are darker complected. It is like it's something that people don't really acknowledge or talk about when we talk about racism. We just kind of, you know, I think we have this archaic view of like somebody in a robe burning a cross in somebody's yard. Right. Throwing a cocktail in somebody's house. And racism doesn't look like that anymore. Racism looks like a young Black girl in elementary school rolls her eyes and her teacher suspends her because she has to have an attitude. That is systemic racism. Yes. Systemic racism now looks like white students being able to, parents being able to buy their kids into college, and Black students being, you know, overlooked because only 3 Black people can go to these prestigious colleges. Racism looks different. No, you know, KKK members may not be wearing white hoods and robes, burning crosses in your yards, but they're damn for sure wearing judges' robes. They're damn for sure wearing police uniforms. They're definitely in the state general assembly.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean?
Yep.
They're definitely the ones who are making decisions about our bodies. They're definitely in big farm. So it's like, I think we have to assimilate people to what modern day racism looks like because it's subconscious. Sometimes you don't even realize it.
Yep. For the discussion that you were having with your ex-boyfriend, he was white, and I'm just thinking of, let's say he did have, we don't need to hear about actually what he went through, but let's just assume, for example, you have a situation where a white guy came from nothing, and he didn't have a history in slave trade or anything like that, came from nothing, absolutely poor, let's just even say no college education, just kicked out in this world. You're still saying he has an advantage because of the history of the country and this 400-year head start. Okay. So, what would you be in favor then? How would you right that wrong, would you say?
Reparations.
Okay. That's what I was going to ask. Yeah. Okay.
To where you are. And it's always difficult because even during slavery, a small percentage of white folks owned slaves. But the fact that they weren't black gave them an advantage, and that advantage made them or gave them the privilege to see black people as less than. Most of the times, the most racist white people are the poorest white people. Most times it's not your affluent.
That's an interesting point.
And it's because when you're in poverty, and I'm pretty sure you guys can attest to this, when you're in a situation where you feel hopeless, even in church sometimes, and I hate when I hear pastors say stuff like, well, it could be worse. You could be living on the street like the homeless people. And to me, that's the wrong way of seeing things, because my misfortune should not be measured against somebody who is less misfortunate just to make me feel good or feel better.
Yep.
And that is what we have in society. You have people who are poor and white, but it's like, well, at least you're not poor and black. And that has been perpetuated through every system in this country. Education, even children do it. And it's become so prevalent and so ingrained in us that we don't even realize that we're doing it when we're doing it. So I don't think it's necessarily that a poor white person, doesn't have to work hard or that they just had it handed to them. But there's this notion that if you're black, you're less than. And so even though you may have started off at the same playing field as me as a white man, you may have been poor. You may have lived, you may have lived in the housing projects. And white people that live in the housing projects, the fact that you're white gives you an advantage because I'm automatically seen as less than.
Yeah, and by very nature, you mentioned if you're poor and white, you might think, well, at least you're not poor and black, which just speaks to the exact. I know some would. I've heard this a time or two, and it wasn't necessarily from. Well, I have heard this that the one of the areas that people try to distract in this country is from the wealthy and the poor. And the wealthy try to protect themselves from coming into the common conversation or the popular conversation by juxtaposing basically poor white people and poor black people, or even just white people and black people against each other, because they're trying to keep the attention on race and not on poor versus wealthy. What are your thoughts on that?
Absolutely. I think that you're absolutely right, which is why we have tons of white allies and supporters who follow our work, but we have to be unapologetic in the conversation so that they can really understand the black experience. Therefore, they know how to engage. But I agree. I think that there is a small percentage of people who want to retain power and power in the sense of money and influence for themselves. And the best way to do that is to watch the people on the ground kill each other.
Exactly.
That's art of war 101.
Yes.
Turn your enemies against one another and they'll kill each other off and you'll just remain in power.
Yes.
So I do agree. But the hard part is on both sides, black and white, particularly on the white side, people have been brainwashed for generations and centuries to believe that these people are the reason why I don't have health care. These people are the reason why I don't have good jobs, or why jobs in my county are closing. It's because, people are coming from Mexico and they're stealing all the jobs. But really, it's because companies like Amazon are putting everybody out of jobs. Mm-hmm. And the reason why they're able to do that is because the politicians who are telling you that these people are actually making money off the side to be able to keep them in position. Mm-hmm. So it's kind of like, how do you even begin to have a conversation with someone that just hates you solely based off the color of your skin?
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Do you go to church?
Yep.
Okay. Where do you see kind of the state of racism in America at the level of church?
It's still racist. I mean, I go to First Baptist Capitol Hill downtown, and my church was actually the first black church, free black church in the state. And it was because First Baptist, the big First Baptist, white First Baptist, gave a slave his own church. Mm. And so for me, I'll be very honest with you, structured religion, the more I do this work, the less favorable of it I am, because I feel like it is the core of white supremacy. Mm. And so I find myself being more ritualistic and more spiritual than I am just super religious, where I'm following the Bible, every step of the Bible, because the more intellectual I become and the more I read the Bible, the less it actually applies to my life. Mm. So, I think that the Bible's a good story, but I can't say that I 100% believe everything that's in the Bible, because, for the most part, it was reinterpreted by people who hate me or who would hate me.
Yeah. Yeah. The church is an unfortunate thing, and I don't disagree with you at the organizational level, at kind of the religious level, if we want to call that, because churches, this was, Andrew, wasn't it just past weekend? Travis Lester, one of our elders, had a black elder, had a video that they played during the congregation. And one of his points was that, we have black churches basically because black people were kicked out of white churches, which is so insane. Mm-hmm. It's so crazy. But I don't think that is a product of people following the Bible. I think that's a product of people reinventing the Bible, manipulating the Bible, like those types of things, and using religion as an excuse to do these ridiculous things. And I just feel like it is unfortunate that, churches still are largely segregated. Let's just be honest about that. This is 2020, and church is definitely still an area that's largely segregated. And then when, and I'm sure that black people experience this in other areas of life, but church is certainly one of those areas where you'll have a white church. It's like, oh, they're going to be about like multi-ethnic and those types of things. Well, black person actually comes there. What they're really asking you to do as a black person now is to be less black and be more like the white people. Well, that's no good either, So it definitely is an area where there's still, I think, plenty of room for improvement here. Mm-hmm. No doubt about that.
It's hard, Kent, in everything. Church is really the foundation. In my opinion, it's the organization of church is the mm-hmm. foundation of white supremacy in a mm-hmm. sense. Mm-hmm. A lot of white supremacist cults built their whole organizations off of church.
Dang, that's so crazy. Well, you know what? It's not the first time in history that religion has been used to do ridiculous things, because wasn't it oh man, I'm so bad at history. Angie, you might have to help me here. What was all the killing that happened under the name of basically Catholicism like 500 years ago or something? You know what I'm talking about?
I will let you know in a minute.
I can't remember what that was. There's it's right on the tip of my tongue of what all that was. But basically, so many people killed in the name of religion, which is just that's not the true, that's certainly not the true religion, People do crazy things in the name of religion. There's no doubt about that. Speaking of guidance, do you want any?
No, thank you.
You good?
Yeah.
What?
I'm being a loyal CrossFitter and fasting from alcohol.
Are you really?
Mm-hmm.
No alcohol.
No alcohol.
Oh, how long have you done that? How long do you plan to do that?
So at least for another 2 months. I want to go to the first of the year.
Okay.
I'm a month and a half in, and 2 more months.
Oh wow, you're doing that for what reasons?
Just mental When this election has been very stressful.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the things that I realize I tend to do is use alcohol or different things as a coping mechanism to deal with stress.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm trying to learn new ways to balance and deal with stress.
Yeah. Do you have it there, Andrew? What was that?
The European Wars of Religion were a series of Christian religious wars which were waged in Europe during the 16th, 17th, and early 18th centuries, fought after the Protestant Reformation began in 1517. The wars disrupted the religious and political order in the Catholic countries of Europe. For example, by the end of the 30 Years' War, 1618 to 1648, Catholic France was allied with the Protestant forces against the Catholic Habsburg monarchy. It says further down here, the conflicts culminated in the 30 Years' War, which devastated Germany and killed 1/3 of its population, a mortality rate twice that of World War I.
So crazy. Twice that of World War I. I mean, and that's in the name of religion. Dealing with stress. So, all right. So alcohol has been one way to deal with that.
Mm-hmm.
And it is effective in the short term, maybe less effective in the longer term.
Yep.
You're trying to not deal with stress using alcohol so much, which is wonderful. How are you dealing with it now?
CrossFit.
Oh. There's something about that that's a good way to...
It's an aggressive workout,
Mm-hmm.
if you really think about it. I've never been an athlete. I think I've told you guys that before at the gym. I've never done anything athletic. And then 2 years ago, I realized I need to find something that's going to challenge me. I like things to be very challenging. So I'm a glutton for punishment, I guess.
Yeah.
I found a CrossFit gym and I was like, okay, this is pretty good. And then I just started getting into it. And then I found my way over to Forte.
Okay.
Where I met Kent.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I really like it. And I started recently being more consistent since I've cut out alcohol. Just okay, let me at least try to come 4 days a week, 3 days a week, and just keep a balanced mind and therapy.
Mm-hmm. Oh, okay. Therapy. How often are you going to therapy?
Every 2 weeks.
Oh, okay. All right. I think I'm gonna restart a little bit. It's been about a year, and I feel like there's definitely a need there,
especially during quarantine.
Yeah,
and then during this whole season, everybody. I mean, like I told you, I have a master's in therapy, so at one point I wanted to be a therapist. So I don't feel like the stigma around therapy. It's just like having a conversation with a friend, but this person is legally binded to a set of rules that says they can't gossip about you.
Yes.
And they don't know you, so they're not biased. And, they have to, they're going to give you help or support. And everybody needs support. So.
Absolutely. It's interesting that you have a master's in therapy and still don't try just to fix yourself. You still see the value in going somewhere and getting help from someone else because you can't replace it. How does I wanted to ask you about this. So this is one of your Facebook posts from just a couple of days ago.
Oh, God, you're my friend on Facebook?
Yeah, we are. Okay. Absolutely. You mentioned here.
Can you like it so I can hit you back?
You mentioned here that it's more from your journal. This year, these last few months to be exact, I've learned that there is so much value in keeping your feelings to yourself. Not that emotional expression is a bad thing, but sometimes people will misconstrue your words. So true. There's so much power in actionable expression versus verbalizing all of your feelings. Not everyone has the tools to decompress beautiful complexities. We know the most rewarding and most fulfilling things are oftentimes unexplainable. In other words, don't always tell folks how you feel or what you want. Show them with your actions. That's a really great post.
I can't believe I wrote that. Go to the one before that. Because that was a follow-up to that's another way. It's journaling. Because sometimes I don't know if you guys experience this, but sometimes I'm afraid of myself. Not in a, I'm going to hurt myself, but this gonna sound crazy, but I'm good at a lot of stuff, but I'm humble, and I don't want to feel like I'm being overly cocky or overcompensating. So I'm always how do I keep myself balanced?
Yep.
And journaling helps me write down the things that I would just be too ashamed to say.
Yes. Yeah. So you have, there's a lot of value in journaling for sure. There's no doubt about that. Is this the post before that you wanted to call out? Okay. What from here did you want to call out here?
Well, so one of the things that I talked about in here is the Black women, there's this whole conversation around Breonna Taylor and with Kamala Harris and how, she was being talked over and she wasn't being heard, and how Black women are coming out saying, as a Black woman, we've always had to minimize ourselves. And that's true. Remember, I just told you that I was afraid of myself. We've always had to minimize ourselves in terms of our beauty, our hair, like our skin, everything. I mean, I told you earlier that sometimes I'm afraid to wear things that are too revealing of my curves. Mm-hmm. So what I was saying in this was emotions, because people think about protecting Black women is just physically protecting Black women, and that's patriarchal too, because men think that, the man can protect you. Mm-hmm. But there is a sense of emotional and mental protection and vulnerability that Black women just aren't afforded. And I have lots of white female friends, and they're just like, no, you should just, me and Shawneen from the gym, we talk about this all the time. She's like, no, you just say it. And I'm like, if I say that, they're going to think that I'm mean, or they're going to think that I'm aggressive, or, passion for a Black woman does not come off the same way it does for a white woman. Mm-hmm. And so in this post, I was simply saying that I'm a very emotionally mature person.
Yep.
I'm very comfortable in my own self, and I'm very expressive. I'm an activist, so I'm very expressive. I'm very open, and I communicate very well. But one of the things that happens is you can be miscategorized. And so one of my friends told me, he was like, you have a lot of fire, and nobody wants to stand up to fire. And you have to make the determination of whether you want to burn the village down or keep the village warm. And that is not going to be based off of your actions all the time or your words. It's going to be based off of people's perception. Mm-hmm. And so this was just me saying that, it's, we don't want to just be called moody or a bee or anything like a bitch. Okay, I can cuss. Because just like the earth, and I consider women to be Mother Earth, we create, right? We have complexities in our beauty and in our emotions. If you look at all of the elements of the earth, the wind, the water, the fire, they have a certain stillness to them, but they also have a certain chaotic destructiveness.
Oh, that's interesting. Yeah.
And so, I think that women, especially with men only have like 3 emotions.
Yeah.
Grumpy, horny, and hungry. That's it.
I mean, it's not entirely wrong.
I mean, I can't argue.
And so as a woman, that's why I go to therapy, because in relationships, it's hard sometimes, and you have to sit with this, that it's hard sometimes to really get what you want when you're verbally expressing your emotions to a man, because they're most times just not wired to decompress it like that. Or even in friendships or even in businesses or whatever, there's a certain level of perception that comes with emotional expression. And so that post that you just read was me saying that, all of these things that make up the woman, and particularly the Black woman, and the stigmas around the Black woman, we have to learn how to innately help ourselves.
Yes.
Because not everybody is going to intentionally create a space for us to be vulnerable.
Yes.
But that doesn't mean we don't deserve it.
Absolutely.
So that's basically what I was saying.
That's actually really good. And just that bottom part of your post there, you say all of nature's elements, the wind, the rain, and the sun, showcase a beautiful stillness, calmness, and peace. They also present aspects of fury, destruction, and chaos. These elements, much like a woman's emotions, are natural, and when you're given the space and support to freely express them, it's a beautiful, uplifting experience. Not only do Black women deserve this space, we've earned this space. Sure, for sure. My first self-made rule of pleasure, freedom of expression is number 1. One of the most revolutionary things we can do is cultivate Black love. However, we have to heal. That's put really, really well. You write that yourself?
Mm-hmm.
That's impressive. Yeah, that's really put extremely well. I like the ideas of, it's helpful to kind of compare it to nature, honestly. Like the wind and the rain and the sun, they can be so still and calm and peaceful, and yet it can like take down villages. It can flood out communities. It can like really do destruction and chaos like you have up there. So it's so true. So then you have this.
And that's the same for your wife too. I put in there at the bottom, as you see, Black women are masters of keeping the peace around us. But my prayer is that we begin to have a space to prioritize the peace within. Because every Black family, the mom is the center of the family. And, this exists beyond the Black family, but it's a big thing in the Black family is that the mom, the women are the warriors. The women are the keepers of everything. And, as a Black woman, we face patriarchy and racism. And so essentially we get bumped down to the bottom of the totem pole so low that we feel our existence is based, sometimes we can feel like our existence is based on keeping everybody else afloat. And we are like burning up from the inside.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. That makes sense. So then this is interesting to have these posts back to back, going back to the post that I read earlier about your insight into or commentary on the value of not just spewing everything you ever think always out on everyone, which I think is also wise. So, you kind of have this post, about like being yourself and just being okay with both the calm and chaos. And then the other post, which is about being wise about what you express and when, and if not like that. So how do you go about, as a woman, how do you go, or even as a Black woman, how do you go about like discerning or using wisdom, and when can you just express and when, this is a time where I'm not gonna speak
It's hard.
up.
It's most of the things that I write on Facebook like this are like things that I'm still learning.
Mm-hmm.
And it's hard because, sometimes you just have I have a lot on my plate. I have a really big responsibility and a lot of pressure. And so sometimes I want a space where I can be expressive and just lay it all out. But when I'm being expressive, I want something out of it. Like I want to feel comforted or I want to feel consoled. And oftentimes when you're in a position like me where you're seen as a pillar of strength, you're not granted that space. And so for me, it's therapy, it's journaling, it's self-exploration. I think a lot of this is tied to, our self-worth and our self-love and our self-esteem. But before you can even do that, you have to be self-aware, and you have to be able to, before you can be self-aware, you have to have a space for self-exploration. So this is just like a journey. You know what I mean? This is me sharing a journey that I'm on as a Black single woman who is in a pretty prestigious or powerful position, which I feel weird when I say that, but it's true. I have to accept that.
Yeah.
And it's hard.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I couldn't imagine having 5 kids.
Well,
a husband, because you like 2 kids in one.
Yeah. It is safe to say I would totally be lost without my wife. I mean, there's no doubt about that. So, and then, there's also reality where after you have a couple of kids, a couple of more isn't that much harder, So
they start helping.
Yeah, exactly. But the self-awareness, I think that is such a key point because I think I'm fairly hard to annoy. I'm definitely hard to make angry. But yeah, people that are not self-aware, that's a little annoying. It gets a little annoying quick. So that self-awareness, that's such a key trait. I don't know how you go about learning that. I guess paying attention to it, but self-awareness is a big deal.
Therapy.
I mean,
yeah, because for me, like I said, most Black people, they don't have the space to be self-aware. Like from the time I was a child, I was not told you can explore all of these things and pick one. I was told you can be this or this. You're going to either be good or bad. You're going to either get pregnant or you're going to be successful. Even when I came to college, I was the first person in my family to go to college, right? And so I remember, and I was really good in math and like tinkering and like I have a left brain. And so I remember my mom saying, I was like, Mom, I want to go into business just because I always wanted to be an entrepreneur. I am one now, and my mom was like, well, you don't want to do that. And I was like, well, why? She was like, because these are the jobs that you can get. You can either be a teacher or you can be a nurse. And I was like, there's no way I'm teaching.
Oh, wow.
And so I started off in nursing and I hated it, which I ended up in therapy because I was just like, what can I do to graduate right now? I'm not adding an extra year to finish this degree that I don't like.
Yeah. Yeah. So you had the self-awareness to know that that was not going to be your future. You didn't enjoy that and you were strong enough or self-reliant enough, rebellious enough to make a change.
After like the first 2 years of college, and I realized like, my parents really aren't in a position to really, it's not like they're paying for my college. And I had 2 jobs. So I was like, you know what? I don't care what y'all, like at that point, you know, you're just like,
Yeah.
I don't care what y'all think. I'm just going to do what I want to do.
Yep.
And my mom was like, it took, I don't even know, like to this day, I don't even know if my mom knows 100% what I do. She's proud of me. Don't get me wrong, but she's just like, you know.
Is she here in Nashville?
No, she's in Chattanooga.
Oh, okay. Okay. Your comment about Black women commonly being the center of the family. That's what is the cause of that?
Systemic racism. Black men have been intentionally stripped from the family, and they've been dehumanized and humiliated and made to feel like they are less than a woman. And so a lot of Black men financially aren't in a position to provide the way that they need to. Mm-hmm. A good chunk of them have felonies and aren't in a position to, you know, really, as I hate this word, but pull themselves up and
sure.
pull, you know, it takes a lot. And so the Black men that are, you know, there are very few. I read this statistic. It was in one of those like lifestyle magazines, so I don't know if it's true, but it was like 80% of Black men that become millionaires marry white women. 80%, that's pretty high. And I wrote down like 20 millionaires that I could think of, and they all are, like a good chunk of them are, if they're not married to white women, they're married to women that aren't Black.
Interesting.
And even I was looking at this this study that showed how people looked at dating websites. And Black women were the only race of women that were less likely to be clicked on by people outside of their race. And so Asian women were number one. Everybody wants an Asian woman, I guess. Everybody clicked on Asian women, and Black women were the one subset of women that only clicked on Black men. And I thought about it, and I was like, you know, I had this conversation with Roach from the gym.
Oh, yeah?
I've never like really seriously, I've gone out on a date with a white boy, but I've never been in a relationship with a white boy because I just don't feel like they're attracted to me.
Oh.
Even if they are and they're trying to like shoot their shot, I just innately just don't. It's a thing.
Yeah.
And so that is kind of a deeper answer, but a lot of it is the systemic.
Yeah.
A lot of Black men, you know, are pushed to the back of the line, unfortunately.
Yeah. And so by nature of that, then the women just have to rise to the top, and now you're the kind of the center of the family. That makes sense. I think that it's interesting to hear some of the stats on those dating sites, because I feel like that is a fairly decent data point. You know what I mean? Like here you have, I don't know how these I know that some of them, like you're looking at a lot of people and you like either swipe left or right, if you like or not. Well, that's data. You can see like who's using the app, who are they seeing, statistically, which ones are they most likely to be attracted to and not, and what race are they and what race are they more attracted to. That's kind of fascinating insight, you know, from these apps. Although I think you're wrong when it comes to thinking that white men are not attracted to you as a Black woman. I do think that is not, I mean, I can't speak for the, you know, whole of human race, like white males, but I don't think that based on the conversations that I've had, you know, from boy to young man to man, you know, over the last 20 years, that's never you know, that's just not a thing.
So what I've experienced has been like, I think white men fetishize Black women, but like they don't want to marry me. You know what I mean? Like being attracted to me, I'm exotic. I'm an exotic Black girl. So yeah, it's like the forbidden fruit, but I don't see them as a like long-term thing. I will say though, since I started doing this work and during the Black Lives Matter movement, a lot more white guys approach me.
Interesting.
So I don't know if they're just like feeling guilty or something. I don't know what it is, but
why can't they just approach you because they like you?
I don't know.
Why does it have to be anything other than that?
I don't know. I don't trust them. I don't trust them.
Well, I think you're safe to not trust most guys. I think that's probably fine. I think that's probably well founded. I think also keep this in mind. Race aside, like let's be honest, most people didn't want to marry Andrew. You know what I mean? Like probably a bunch did and a bunch didn't, and only one did. You know what I mean? Like most people didn't want to marry me. Like I didn't care what their race
So
were.
wait, you had no. I don't see. This is why I don't trust men right now.
No, but my point is that like if the right one, like if you meet the right guy, I don't really care what his nationality is, what his ethnicity is, what his skin color is. Like if you meet the right one, it's game over. You know what I mean? Like it's so just because maybe some white guys wanted to date but didn't want to marry doesn't mean you won't get married to a white guy.
Oh my God.
You know what I mean? Do you know what I'm saying?
My mom keeps saying that she thinks I'm gonna marry a white guy. I'm like, Mom, that goes against everything that I'm fighting for here.
Well, I don't think you. I mean, I don't have an opinion on whether you should or you should not.
He's gonna destroy my brand.
Right?
Yeah.
So you don't feel good. You would not feel good about marrying a white guy.
No, I'm not gonna say that. I'm very rebellious and I'm very unapologetic. So if I met a white guy and we got married, like I wish somebody would say something. I have my white guy with his Black Lives Matter shirt on.
Right.
I mean, he would have to be like down for the cause. Like he couldn't be, you know.
You'd have to be a good fit, whether that's, whatever area of life that you're thinking about. I mean, you'd need to be good fits for each other. So I would propose that.
Oh God, no. No.
Well, I would submit for your consideration that the issue may not be so much white guys as meeting the right white guy. Are you open to that hypothesis?
I don't know. I need to sleep on it. I mean,
I think there's, I don't know.
I mean, I definitely get along with them.
Yeah. Yeah.
But it's not a matter of, it's just a matter of preference, right?
Sure. I agree. Yeah.
And then I'm also very like naive to people trying to holler at me.
You don't pick up on signals very easy?
Not that. Everything else, I'm very discerning, but that I like put him in the friend zone. Like, oh, he wants to be my friend.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. Well, that's probably not all bad.
Mm-hmm. We attend, you probably know this. Kent and I serve as officers and leaders at Emmanuel Nashville on Charlotte Avenue. Mm-hmm. I've been attending for 8 years. Kent, you're 5 coming
Since
up on
2016. Yeah.
So 4 years now. And we've had a lot of wonderful people come through the doors at Emmanuel and have served us really well. One couple is a dear friend named Charles. He's a black guy and he was one of my favorite people I've ever met. Learned a lot from him. He married a white woman and he's now serving over in East Nashville. And they're honestly a very beautiful couple. Obviously they both have very beautiful things about them exteriorly that make them both very beautiful, but I was kind of there for a good bit of their journey before they got married, and it just made sense that they were a perfect couple because they loved what was beautiful in each of them, and the way that they loved each other poured out into how they loved other people. I felt very enriched by them, and now fast forwarding to this year, we have a couple of friends who were single. Now they're not going to be. In December, they're actually getting married at Emmanuel. And it's a white guy and a black girl. And in the same way, the way that they love each other builds all of us up, honestly. Yeah. I know, and we hear a lot, even in normal conversation, they just come up. And it's not that, hey, they're really different people entering into marriage together. What's beautiful about it is they really love each other. And the way they love, especially what's different about each other, it builds all of us up. And it's really a privilege to know both of those couples, or have known, since one of them's now over in East Nashville serving at a different church. But knowing them has been two of the greatest joys of my church life and really my whole life.
Is this you trying to pitch me to come to your church?
It is now.
Now it is. Yes.
4301
we
Charlotte
got all
Avenue.
The white guys falling in love with black women down here in Emmanuel.
No, you did not hear that. You heard it both ways, I think.
Yeah. 9 a.m. First service,
Don't
9
be
a.m.
trying to manipulate Andrew's words now. Come on.
First service, 9 a.m. Second service, 10:45.
Yeah, absolutely.
Shameless
so,
plug,
this is a shameless plug. You mentioned Black Lives Matter. Does the Equity Alliance have an official sort of connection with Black Lives Matter, or they have their cause, you have yours, those causes overlap a lot, and you're kind of friends of the mission, so to speak?
Yeah, I think the Black Lives Matter movement is such a larger movement. In terms of organization, the Black Lives Matter chapter in Nashville is not that large. It's very small. And Black Lives Matter chapters tend to start at universities, predominantly white universities. So, I mean, I think that we share similar missions and we definitely support one another. There's no
I see it on your T-shirt.
Yeah, Black Lives Matter over here, but Black Lives Matter over there. And I think before Black Lives Matter was an official thing, we always, Equity Alliance, and not just Equity Alliance, but other organizations, Black-led, Black organizations were Black Lives Matter. And then someone came and trademarked it and made it an organization.
Yeah.
But that doesn't mean that, the narrative around what Black Lives Matter as a movement means is only pigeonholed to one organization or one entity.
Yep.
Black Lives Matter is bigger than just the organizational context. It's a way of life for organizers and for activists that are doing racial justice work.
Way of life. That's interesting. What do you mean by that?
So, the principles or the values of what Black Lives Matter means, it's more of a movement than it is an organization.
Yes.
And so that extends beyond just whatever tax status or who owns the copyrights to the narrative Black Lives Matter. Like, many people are focused on Black Lives Matter, and we're living the narrative or the perception or the wording or the mission of Black Lives Matter. We're living that in our day-to-day lives by how we spend our money, how we spend our time, how we're training ourselves, how we're taking care of our bodies.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Black Lives Matter is not just about protesting. It's about, like I said, me cutting off alcohol for a while to make sure that I'm taking care of my own Black body because Black Lives Matter, right?
Mm-hmm.
Me working out and being intentional about taking care of my body. Me journaling so that I can take care of my mind. Me being expressive so that I can learn to balance my emotions. That is all centering my Black life.
Yes. Let me ask you this. One thing that you see out there on these protest signs and stuff that I see in pictures or whatnot is it seems like sometimes in response to Black Lives Matter, you'll see like people holding banners that like all lives matter. And no one's disagreeing with that, right? I mean, even Black Lives Matter people, obviously, they also agree that all lives matter.
Mm-hmm.
But when they're trying to be like all lives matter, do you feel like, how does that feel to you? Do you feel like it's like, well, no, duh, of course they do, but we're trying to bring specific attention to Black Lives Matter, and now you're really not doing a good job on communicating that all lives matter, including Black Lives Matter. Just by nature of having all lives matter on your banner, it sort of is detracting from what we're doing over here at Black Lives Matter. Do you follow my train of thinking?
Oh
there?
yeah, I'm
what
with
are your
you.
thoughts on that?
I'm with you 100%. I think that one of the things about self-awareness is learning that you can censor other people without diminishing yourself. So if you're going through something and you come to me and you're having a conversation with me about, I don't know, you hurt your leg at CrossFit, I don't have to tell you, well, I hurt my arm. Everybody's broke bones. I don't have to tell you that to acknowledge the fact that I too have pain. Mm-hmm. We oftentimes in just the activist and advocacy space, Black and white, there's this comparative trauma thing where everybody's trying to trump the next person's trauma. And that's not how we heal. We heal by intentionally healing and by giving people an opportunity to be heard and supporting them. And what Black Lives Matter is saying is right now, Black lives need extra support. Because while we care about all lives, Black lives are intentionally being targeted and taken for nothing. Mm-hmm. And so we need people, we need the media, we need our allies. We need people who don't necessarily agree with everything that we may think is the way towards liberation, whether that be defund the police or whether that be something else. You don't have to agree with every policy in order to accept the fact that Black lives matter and that Black people have been, are being, and will continue to be until we all get on the same page, being killed for no reason besides the fact that they're Black.
Yep. So all that being the case, where do you see hope? Do you have hope? Do you see a brighter future? Where do you see the bright spots on the horizon?
I just looked at the news and saw that almost every polling precinct was wrapped around the building.
Yeah?
And so people are like taking matters into their own hands, which is what the Constitution says people should do and can do, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so people are starting to force the American government to live out the values of the Constitution by making sure their voices are heard.
Mm-hmm.
That gives me hope. The other hope I get is when I sit down and have a conversation with two white men and I get to talk about black people and they are actually open to listening. That's hope. I get hope when I have conversations with Shawneen at the gym and we're talking about stuff and she's asking me questions. That's hope. Hope is when I talk to a bunch of all white privileged men, mostly at the gym, and they're talking to me about stuff and they want to learn. That gives me hope. When I see my daughter, who's only 6 years old, and she's starting to have conversations like this with her friends, and she understands, that gives me hope. I mean, hope is all around. You know what I mean? I think innately everybody wants to do what's right. I know that probably makes me like an anomaly in terms of an activist, but I truly believe that everybody wants to do what's right. I think just going back to the conversation you had about the woman who was a news reporter, nobody's ever done anything different besides what's happening. So when people start seeing that one person say, I'm going to do it a different way. Instead of doing it this way, I'm going to be the person to take the risk, to take the scrutiny and do it, and people actually follow. That gives me hope.
Yeah. I agree with you on the thought that people want to do what's right, or kind of the general view of people that they want to do what's right. I think it's good to give people the benefit of the doubt. I think most people deserve the benefit of the doubt. And I do think people want to do what's right. I think there are people that want to do what's right, but have a greater desire than to get ahead and have like greed overtake that desire to do what's right. So the desire to do what's right is still in there, but greed takes over and shuts it down and does what needs to be done to serve them best. I think those people are out there too, and they need to be watched out for because they can be very sinister.
Yeah, I think acknowledging the good in humanity does not diminish the fact that they're bad people.
Yeah.
They're always going to be bad people, just like there's heaven, there's hell, just like there's good, there's bad, there's dark, there's light, you know. But I think that when we begin to put our focus on the negative, we take away the beauty and the hope for humanity. And so for me, I just always want people to be so focused on the good that the bad has to get into the good to be able to touch you.
Yeah, that's well put. Well, thank you for coming by this afternoon.
Yeah,
I really
anytime.
appreciate it. Anything
Yeah.
else you want to get into?
Well, I do want to tell people where they can find me.
Please.
You can find my organization, The Equity Alliance, at theequityalliance.org. We're on all social media platforms as The Equity Alliance, and we're on Twitter as The Equity Alliance 1. I'm on social media as Tequila Johnson, a.k.a. Miss Solutionary.
Oh, yeah,
That's
Miss
my
Solutionary. I
tagline.
like that.
You
I
like
love
that?
it. Unashamedly. Yeah, that's a great, actually. That's fantastic. Well, thank you very much for talking a little bit more about the Equity Alliance and what you guys are doing there, and even sharing your experiences. Like that's helpful. I really appreciate it. And that's where I think I have
Absolutely.
the most hope too, is at the level of conversation. Because when we're both on each other's sides and kind of caught up in our echo chambers of information and hearing from the same people and having our viewpoints reinforced based on algorithms on social media or whatever news channel we tend to gravitate towards, and the other side's doing the exact same thing, like that's a really dangerous situation to be in.
Oh, yeah.
But if we can be talking, with each other, that's really critical. Really critical.
Yeah.
So
Imperative.
yeah, I mean, this is helpful for us. Like it's definitely, there's things here that we're just not aware of.
Yep.
As a white guy in this country, there are things that we're not aware of. We may not agree on everything, but I think that's somewhat hard to disagree with.
Yeah.
The fact
Yeah.
that there are certain things that we're just not as aware of. So, all right, Tequila, you good?
I'm good.
All right.
Thanks,
Thank you so
Ken.
much for coming by the
Yeah,
podcast.
I
Really
sure
appreciate it. This is a
will.
lot of fun. We're going to see you at the gym tomorrow.
Yep, I'll be at the
Which,
gym
by the
tomorrow.
way, you need to start showing up a little bit more on time because 2 days ago, we had an over-under bet on whether you're going to be 7 minutes, less than 7 minutes late or over 7 minutes late.
Which one was
your
it?
reputation is preceding you. I think you had the under by like a minute. You were still
Yeah.
late though.
And today,
But you still
guess
showed
what?
up. You still
Today,
showed
I
up.
was super early. I was like an hour early, and I left because I was exhausted.
Oh, you didn't work out?
I was like, I'm just gonna go for a walk. I was so tired.
Okay.
Because
Yeah.
I'm being pulled in so many different directions. Like my phone has been blowing up the whole time.
Well,
You
that's
heard
what I'm
it?
saying. You need to sit down and take a rest.
I am.
I mean, you really do. You need to watch out for yourself because
Yeah.
if you just kind of burn out quickly, this isn't going to do anybody any good.
I know.
So you have, but I mean, are you going to get a little bit of rest after the election?
Yeah.
'Cause
Oh
you're kind
yeah.
of
I'm
building
taking a
up
month
for this
off.
really important time. So
Yeah.
good. Glad to hear it. Okay, thanks, Tequila.
All right.
Appreciate
Thank you,
you.
Kent.
Thank you very much.